700-893-542.
700-893-542.
Or email us on sales@look-up.tv. Like, follow, subscribe, click the notification button. Join the Look Up TV movement now.
From the ticket to your next meal, to your ticket to the next holiday, it's an easy way to ask for a boost when you're low. And keeping track of everything on the go. The future of money is simple, and it's here. Download the new M-Pesa app today.
You're right on time for the Bottom Line KE right here on Look Up TV. Remember, we promised, and we've definitely made it happen right here on the Bottom Line KE. Every week on Mondays at 9 p.m. we get to meet and to try and dissect some of the key political events that are taking place in the country. Remember, we had promised to talk to Dr. Miguna Miguna, and of course he's here with us. We'll definitely be able to be touching on an array of issues, from the war on corruption. We'll talk about the Jubilee government's track record. We'll also look at the 2022 general elections dynamics. Plus, of course, would he work with Raila Odinga? And what would that take if the answer to that is yes? We'll be able to also hear from his own mouth as far as what he thinks about today's Nairobi post Mike Sonko. Of course, we'll also be looking at some of those who have eaten a block on his Twitter handle. Would he be extending some olive branch or sympathy to unblock you? We'll be able to hear more on this, plus of course dissecting on the economic models of the political front runners in the 2022 political game plan. We'll also be able to hear more on this and others. Of course, we want you to keep tweeting. All you need to do is add the hashtag #TheBottomLineKE. We'll be able to track your tweets. That's what we are looking at throughout this particular conversation. We understand that they've been coming in, and of course it will be easier if you add the hashtag #TheBottomLineKE. If you have a question for Dr. Miguna Miguna, if you want to contribute to what will be said on this particular program, kindly go ahead and tweet us, and you can tweet me at Eugene Anangwe or at Lookup TV. All right, so in just a bit we'll be introducing our guest tonight on the program. Stay with us. Intellectually and politically. He says he believes strongly in the culture and civilization and the pride of an African, so much that he celebrates it every day, even when he goes to bed. Now, he is not new to controversy. During the KANU regime of the late President Moi, he was detained due to his political activism. When he was released, he reportedly fled to Tanzania on foot and later granted political asylum in Canada, where he eventually gained citizenship. He is a firebrand lawyer, politician, and author, the man with the same name twice. They call him Dr. Miguna Miguna, and he's our guest tonight on the Bottom Line KE. Remember, you can be part of this particular conversation. You can ask him your questions. The hashtag is the Bottom Line KE. Like I said earlier on, we're live across our digital platforms on YouTube and on our Facebook pages. Kindly feel free to also leave a comment or a question right there. Dr. Miguna Miguna, you're looking amazing. This is what most of the Kenyans who have even seen that picture you posted before we went on air, they say the general is looking amazing. What's the secret? What's going on? Someone is even saying maybe life is much better there. If you were here, maybe you'd be looking different, Doctor.
Was I supposed to look bad?
Kubali compliment.
No, I was not supposed to look bad. Exile is not supposed to be, was not supposed to kill me.
Yeah.
Even though that could have been the intention.
Yeah.
But I want to correct you. I did not tell you that where I eventually gained citizenship. I think that is the propaganda of the state.
Yeah.
And I don't want to start on a wrong footing.
Yeah.
I'm in exile, period.
So the question, Dr. What probably would be able to understand, it's been about 3 years, going to 4 years since you were deported or you were forced out of the country into exile. The question that many Kenyans have been asking themselves is, Miguna Miguna has been saying that he's coming back to the country, much to the point that you did not kick yourself out of the country, but this is what most people have been asking. When is the general coming back? When is he coming back? Maybe we could start from there.
So thank you very much for inviting me to your studio, and I say good evening to all Kenyans and everyone who is watching. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay. So number one, some of these questions have been asked, but sometimes I wonder whether they are asked with clarity and genuine interest to know, or they are done in bad faith. Because number one, everybody knows that I was in Kenya on February the 2nd, 2018, when a group of heavily armed security people came to my home in civilian clothing and used military detonators to get into the house. They basically exploded the detonators into the house. They didn't knock. They didn't say they were coming. They broke down the gate and they broke down the door. And then they went ahead to rummage the house and broke many other doors and abducted me from my own house and detained me for 6 days incommunicado. They didn't give me access to lawyers like they do to everybody. They didn't give me access to doctors. They didn't take me to court. And instead, they took my Kenyan passport away from me, put me in a plane, and forced me out of the country to Canada. When I returned in March 2018, they refused to allow me entry into the country despite many court orders. They then assaulted me physically at the airport, then detained me at the airport for 3 days, notwithstanding many court orders, including the conviction of Matiang'i and his group by Justice Odunga. They then assaulted me, sedated me, and forced me out of the country. So anyone asking why I have not come back to the country must have his head examined, because I was in the country before I was forced out. I returned before I was taken out by force again. And then the third time, which was last year in January, they issued red alerts, and 2 airlines were not able to fly me into Kenya in January last year, notwithstanding Justice Korir's order that I was allowed to enter Kenya and leave Kenya with my national ID card or the passport that they are destroyed. So that's why I'm not in Kenya. I thought the question should not be asked. And in fact, I believe it is unfair to ask me the question. The media in Kenya operates as if they have no memory. And if the people are asking that question because they are forgotten for whatever reason, it is the duty of the media to inform the public. But today, it is my duty, not just to inform you, but to inform everyone and remind them of what happened. I am not in Kenya because Despot Uhuru Kenyatta has decided to disobey court orders and violate my rights. I know many will ask, why do I call him despot? That's the English word for a man who does not respect the rule of law, for a man who subverts the Constitution, for a man who defies court orders and does not care about human rights. That's a despot.
Right. Dr. There are those who argue, and they would probably want to ask, when you say that anybody who's asking why you're not back in Kenya should have their heads examined, and they probably look up to you to give direction in that sense of this is what I'm doing, or this is what my legal team is continuing to do to be able to ensure that I am back in the country. Would they be genuine when they say probably you have put your hands up in submission and said, you know what, I cannot be able to beat this system, and that's it. I'm not able to come back to Kenya because they kicked me out of the country and they've refused to obey the court orders. What if the status quo continues? What next for you?
So it is like, I'll give you an analogy, and maybe you will be able to appreciate why that question sounds ridiculous. So one day, Nelson Mandela in 1964, thereabout, Nelson Mandela was abducted also and put in and charged and tried and convicted for terrorism and sentenced to life imprisonment. And Nelson Mandela was in Robben Island. And there are a lot of South Africans that were born when Nelson Mandela was actually in jail. But they got to know why Nelson Mandela was in jail. He was trying to fight for the liberation of South Africans. But then if a media person asked, a media person, mark you, not a person who was just born yesterday, asked, why can Nelson Mandela come out of the Robben Islands? You see how ridiculous that question is? Because Nelson Mandela has been locked in Robben Island by the apartheid system who have refused to release him. So somebody is asking, why can't he come out? Or alternatively, why did Steve Biko decide to die? Do you understand? And we all know that he was murdered. Or why was Oliver Tambo in exile when Nelson Mandela was in jail? When we all know that he was exiled and South African government refused to allow him back in. So that's why I'm saying it is ridiculous. Someone who is an adult of sound mind would require their heads to be examined when they ask the question of a man whom you saw being forced out by armed men when you did not plan to travel out of Kenya. I was sleeping in my house. And then when I tried to come back, like the court had ordered and I wanted to, they had more than 2,000 people armed to the teeth at the airport to prevent him from coming in. I mean, if Miguna had committed a crime, why not just take him to court? They refused to take me to court because they knew I had not committed any crime. It has nothing to do with surrender, unless the word surrender lost its meaning or has a different meaning. Surrender would mean that I say, like Raila Odinga did, I join you. You have won, right? That's what Raila Odinga did on March the 9th, 2018. He raised up both hands to Uhuru Kenyatta and said, just like you wish. I'll do like you wish.
For what
And
he
he's
says,
been
for
doing
what,
like-
for
No,
what
no,
he
let me
believes,
finish.
for what he believes was for the sake of the peace of the country.
Let me finish. Raila Odinga did exactly that. He surrendered because Raila Odinga had said that his elections had been stolen. And I believed him. I still believe that. But the person who stole his election is the one he joined without any conditions. And then he disarmed his own people, his supporters, and said there was something great that was going to come out of this handshake. Nothing came out of it. There has been absolutely no gain to the Kenyan people. So that's what probably some people want me to do, and that's what I would never do. So on the contrary, I'm the one who has not surrendered. I have not in any way gone against my principles. I've continued to call Uhuru Kenyatta what he is, a tyrant. And I will continue fighting for my rights no matter what Uhuru Kenyatta and his group does. So the physical denial of me from entering Kenya is is a sign of weakness. The state fears me because otherwise, why haven't they locked you out of Kenya? Why have they locked everybody else who is talking in Kenya?
Right.
They fear me. So you can't turn that into a weakness.
Right. Dr. Miguna, what is this that probably you'd be able to tell someone listening to you say that the state fears me, and probably they are not finding understanding of that statement? Why would the state fear you, Dr. Miguna Miguna?
It's obvious. It's obvious, Mr. Anangwe. I think everybody, as I said, everybody with common sense, everybody who has sound mind and who has memory will remember that before Uhuru Kenyatta abducted me and forced me out of Kenya, I was leading the national resistance movement. So I start there. What was it supposed to be resisting? It was supposed to resist electoral injustice and theft that he had perpetrated. 2, what is it had I planned and others in the national resistance movement? I had planned to pull down Uhuru Kenyatta's portraits from offices and burn them in bonfires as other symbols of resistance would go up. And I had planned a nationwide mobilization to be able to have Kenyans confront Uhuru Kenyatta's tyranny head on. If they didn't fear that, and it was all democratic, it was all legal, if they did not fear that, then why did they break through my door? Why did they detain me in Comunicado?
Right.
Why did they take me to court? Why did they force me out of the country? Why did they destroy my passport? Why haven't they allowed me to come back home? Why have they disobeyed all the court orders? So, Mr. Anangwe, it is very clear. They did that because of fear. You would not exile someone you don't fear. Throughout history, the only people that have been exiled because the state fears them. From Lenin to Castro, to the revolutionary leaders of South Africa, to anyone that you can think of, history is replete with individuals with integrity, individuals with progressive ideas, individuals who are fearless and are confronting a dictatorship or a tyranny, and the tyranny or the tyrants decide the only way that we stay in power is to keep the opponent by force outside the country. And that's what they've done.
Right. Raila Odinga, the ODM leader, is on the record having said that why would Uhuru Kenyatta fear Miguna Miguna? Why would Raila Odinga even fear Miguna Miguna? In fact, in his own words, he said that you're just like a barking dog that cannot bite. In fact, he says, come and bark from here in the country. I mean...
Yeah, but how do I come in if they have refused to allow me in? You see, that is silly. Mm-hmm. And Raila Odinga knows that. Raila Odinga himself has been to exile. You know? So he's talking like he was not in exile himself in 1990s. And he came back home because he was allowed to come back home. The question you have to ask yourself is this: why is he abusing me when I swore him in? You see how ungrateful he is. This is how Raila is ungrateful. Raila was ungrateful. I can count so many people Raila has been ungrateful to. Mm-hmm. Raila has been ungrateful to Ratengo Gingo Gego, who pulled him out of the muck and helped him when he went and joined KANU. Raila has been ungrateful to even William Ruto, who helped him in 2007. Raila has been ungrateful to everyone. He has called everyone names, people who have helped him. So I was his advisor, not his PA, his advisor. Mm-hmm. Then I am the only one who swore him in. When people like Orengo were shitting in their pants and couldn't do it. People like Otiende couldn't raise up to do it. And now, I'm the one he's calling a dog. Imagine if he can do that to someone who sacrificed his life to swear him in. Something he wanted to do, but he had nobody courageous enough to do for him. And imagine my house was destroyed as a result, partly because of that. And imagine I was forced out of Kenya largely because of that. Mm-hmm. And that's the person he's calling a dog. So can you imagine people who have not done anything for him? He does not have any respect for Kenyans. Raila Odinga only cares about himself and his greed for money and power. So I don't really care what he says. I think my record is very clear. Kenyans know that I am fearless and Raila is the opposite. Raila is a coward. That is why he's working with Uhuru Kenyatta, and I am not. So let me put it the other way. Mm-hmm. I hold no public office in Kenya. That's well known, right?
Correct.
I am not a billionaire and have not looted anything in Kenya, and I don't have hundreds of thousands of acres in Kenya, correct? But Uhuru Kenyatta has hundreds of thousands, if not millions of acres, is a trillionaire, if not a multi-billionaire, and has all the power. So which means that if I wanted money, the easiest thing to do is to surrender and get money from Uhuru Kenyatta, like Raila did. But yet I don't. If I was a coward like Raila, I would have surrendered to Uhuru because he has power. I have not. So don't you see the stark difference between us? One person has principles and says, I am not going to surrender to injustice, and I'm not going to surrender to tyranny, and I'm not going to surrender to barbarism, and the other does exactly that.
Right.
So this is not a man that should even, he's not fit to tie my shoelaces. He's not fit, he's not qualified.
Right.
The only reason people talk about Raila Odinga is because he's the son of Jaramogi, and because the media have made him to be who he is not. You see, you can make a fool look like a genius just by talking about him as if he was, when everybody else knows that he's a fool.
Dr. Miguna, there are those who will argue, and they'll say, based on what you just said, we've been reading from some of the analysis, especially just anchoring on that point of fear, that they fear you. You did take a stab at active politics in 2007. You contested for the Nyando constituency parliamentary seat, but you actually failed to make it beyond the ODM primaries. And part of the reason why probably the Odinga camp and those who are his supporters are saying that why would Raila fear you when even in the political arena you did not even make it past the ODM primaries. What do you tell such people who probably undermine you from that perspective? That you cannot tell us anything. You're not a political heavyweight.
Other than the media, there is nobody doing it from that perspective. Everybody knows that I cannot be mentioned in that line. You know very well that Miguna is not the equivalent of your clueless MP. You know that. I mean, I don't think I should be able to argue that point. That point is pretty much clear. All right? Because if I wasn't, did he appoint me as advisor? Do you understand? The senior most advisor. I've seen people, including even Mr. Abdikadir the other day, comparing me to saying that when they went to Naivasha, Miguna was locked out of the Naivasha negotiation room with Moses Kuria. You see, they are very, very desperate to try to reduce my stature, because everybody knows my counterpart during the Grand Coalition was Professor Kivutha Kibwana, not Moses Kuria. So if you're going to mention that Miguna, something happened to me in Naivasha together with my counterpart, then you put Kivutha Kibwana, not Moses Kuria. Do you understand? But they're so desperate they wouldn't want to do that because they know the obvious, right? Like, so there is nothing to say there. If I'm so useless and I don't have any stature, allow me back home. Let's see. Let the country decide. Why don't they allow that? They haven't allowed that. Let Kenyans be the ones making that decision. And by the way, when Castro took power in Cuba in 1959, he had never held public office. All right? When Lenin took power in Russia, he had not held public office. You don't have to hold public office to be anything. When Sankara became president of Burkina Faso and transformed it, he was nothing, really. He was not even a major general. He was a captain, very low in the army, right? So people who worship positions that are not even, they are not entitled to, or positions that they are not qualified to hold, are the ones who will be mesmerized by MP, I don't know, you are called Prime Minister. It's useless in a banana republic. I don't care how many titles they have. They don't merit those titles. They are not leaders. They have no vision. They have no transformative ideology. They have no ideas. So they think what makes them something is the amount of money they have stolen, or the amount of land they have accumulated, or the amount of power they have. And I don't respect that. I don't respect power. I don't respect position. I don't respect money. I respect ideas. That's what I respect. I respect vision. I respect virtue. I respect integrity. I respect transformation. I respect justice. Those are the values I respect.
Fair enough. I wanted to just quickly ask you this particular question, because you've mentioned Raila Odinga in various lights, and in 2012, you did pen your thoughts through the book Peeling Back the Mask, A Quest for Justice in Kenya. This particular book literally depicted Raila Odinga as a chatterland and a man not to be trusted, and it was published in 2012. You went ahead to publish another one.
Have you read it? Have you read it?
Just first of all,
have you read the
listen
book?
to my
Have you
question
read the
first.
book?
Listen to my question first.
No. Have you read the book? I need to know whether you have read the book, because I'm not going to discuss something that you have not read. Have you read the book?
You see, the question is anchored on the aspect of what you say.
Eugene,
what
have
is,
you read the book?
Okay,
Just
Daktari,
answer me.
I have not had a chance to read the whole book. But
well, then don't ask a question about a book you have not read.
No, but hear me out, Daktari, hear me out. This is the question.
You started off on a false premise.
This is the question.
You started by, you penned your thought.
Kindly listen to my question. All right?
No, the question is premised on a false premise.
No, but peeling back the mask, what was it about? Then tell us.
It's a memoir. It's a memoir.
Yes.
Go read it first before you ask questions about it.
So it's a memoir.
I'm not going to entertain questions from people who have not read the book. Read the book, then we will have a knowledgeable discussion.
All right.
But if you don't read the book, and now you are coming with questions people have given you, then
no one has given me any question.
They will have to, no, let me finish. They will have to tell you what next to ask. I'm not going to answer questions from somebody who has not read my book.
Daktari, is the issue I've not read the book, or is the question? Is it the question I'm about to ask?
The question is supposed to be premised on a book you have not read. So my suggestion to you is this, as a journalist, read the book,
and then I come back and ask you the questions. All right, fair enough. So would you work with Raila Odinga in any
No,
point?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
No, I wouldn't. Why would I work with a charlatan? You yourself said he's a charlatan, right?
In 2012, 2013, but still went ahead to work with him in NASA.
I did not work with Raila Odinga. You see, this is the problem. And I told you when we were discussing this interview that Mr. Nangwe, don't fall into the trap of the average Kenyan so-called reporter who comes with questions people have written for him, who has not necessarily digested the question and understands its import, and then come to me, because you will not get through. I will answer you, but you will not get through that shallow kind of question. Number one, everybody knows, and I've said it repeatedly, that I did not work with Raila Odinga after his electoral victory was stolen in 2017. I have said that repeatedly. Let me answer the question. So number one, I did not work with him. I did not work for him. Do you understand? What I did is join the struggle for electoral justice. Raila Odinga happened to have been the person whose victory had been stolen. It could have been anybody. It could have been you. It could have been Ruto. It could have been Musalia. It could have been Joe Blow. I really don't care. The fact is, a choreographed exercise had been held or conducted in Kenya that did not meet constitutional remit. The Supreme Court said as much. I analyzed the situation and realized that Uhuru Kenyatta had stolen the election. I decided as Miguna and others that we were not going to accept that, and that we were going to do everything possible to make sure that the thief, the electoral thief, was brought to account. That's what I was doing. It happened that Raila was aggrieved. And so Raila, together with others and myself, were confronting electoral injustice. That's not joining Raila in anything. Why is it that Raila is the default? We are all Kenyans. I'm a Kenyan, just like he is. I have rights, just like he has. And if we are fighting against something, it does not have to be on behalf of Raila. Democracy does not belong to Raila Odinga.
You had already described him.
Does not belong to Raila Odinga.
You had already described him as a charlatan in 2012. You went ahead and still wrote another one, which I have not yet read, Daktari, and I agree with you.
So don't ask questions about something you have not read.
But I'm going by what is in the public domain in this particular sense, in terms of description of these memoirs of yours. But you still went ahead to work with him. As a matter of principle, what I'm asking is, they say that in this game there are no permanent enemies.
No. You
Yes.
see, Mr. Nangwe, now
Yes.
I don't distinguish you with the rest. Now I think you're just like the others because number one, you've had a lot of time to read the books you want to ask questions on. And you decided not to read them. They're not very long books. If you wanted to read them overnight, you would have done so that we could have had an intelligent discussion. But you refused to do so. Number two, you are repeating what people are saying, pedestrians on the street. So there is no distinction between a journalist and a pedestrian on the street. You see, I have made this point clear, and I don't know why you're not getting it. I fight for justice. And in 2017, 2018, that's what I was fighting for, not for Raila Odinga. It happened to be that Raila Odinga had his election stolen. So he was the victim. So therefore, people who are shallow would see that I am doing it for him. No, I'm not doing it for him. I'm doing it for the country. Electoral justice belongs to citizens of Kenya, not to Raila Odinga. Okay? And even if Raila Odinga is the perpetrator or the victim, the fact of the matter is that when you are resisting electoral injustice, you are resisting against the person who has perpetrated it, who was Uhuru Kenyatta. Raila Odinga is a Kenyan, just like you. And at one time, he was supposed to be doing exactly that, resisting electoral injustice. But then in between, he surrendered and he joined the electoral thief. Would you be happy that I would be so unprincipled that I decide to follow him in his surrender and leave the cause that I was fighting?
Right.
What kind of logic is that?
The point is clear. You've said
that instead of saying, Miguna, you have demonstrated principle, that you have not bent your principle, that you have stayed on course. You are now blaming me for not following Raila to a butcher. You know, this is serious. It's like saying Amin brutalized everybody in Uganda, so the people who joined him are good. The people who fought him are bad. I mean, what kind of logic is that? This kind of contorted logic can only be found in Kenya, particularly among the so-called journalists. And it is disappointing because you should know better.
Right, Daktari, fair enough. That's why we're having this conversation, you know. Now, let's move the conversation forward.
But you've changed the conversation.
No.
We were supposed to talk about Kenya.
Yes, this is where we're heading now.
No, because this is a trick always with the Kenyan media. We are in 2021, okay? We have struggles of today. I am a victim of human rights violations. But instead of talking about these issues, instead of talking about the people who are violating the rights of Kenyans, Kenyans who are continuing to suffer even now, you want to take us to a book you have not read? You want to take us to 2007 when Miguna is supposed to have run for elections in ODM? You want to take us to another book in 2012 you have not read? What kind of rubbish is this?
Daktari, every book has a preamble. There is always a set of layout. I would like you to kindly allow me to lay out the conversation as you agreed to have this conversation. It is okay.
You can be able to in a coherent, logical way. That is why I'm here.
Correct.
If you wanted to invite somebody, if you wanted to invite the normal Kenyan, who would be smiling and laughing and happy just because they have been given a chance to speak, this is not one of them, and you know that.
So let's move the conversation forward if you can. So what would you be then looking at in terms of a country whereby we have seen several court orders defied by the president, several of them. I think there have been so many that, some of the Kenyans have even lost count of them. But yet, the government of the day continues to serve. We have seen the president is about even to finish his term, and there are those who've been arguing that the clarion call that you've been making, despots must fall, Uhuru must fall, and here he is, he's about to finish his term, and some of them have been saying that these calls are falling on deaf ears. I mean, what would you say about that?
So, Mr. Anangwe, I want to respond by educating Kenyans, including yourself, because history is very important. How long did it take Kenyans to fight the British colonialist before we eventually got the flag independence? It was not 4 years. Yes, they have locked me out of Kenya for 4 years. How long did they lock even Jomo Kenyatta, however bad he was, in Lodwar? Right?
Yes.
Did it stop anything? Did it stop the liberation struggle? It didn't. How long did apartheid in South Africa last? More than 100 years, isn't it?
Correct.
It eventually fell. How long was Hitler in power in Germany? It wasn't 2 years. The fact that a regime, a tyrannical regime, the fact that a dictator has been in power even for 10 years doesn't make any difference to me. Because eventually the dictatorship will fall. You see, this is the difference between people who know history and who understand ideology and who understand struggle like I do, from the rest who think that you say there shall be rain and the rain comes down. A struggle is not a Christmas party, all right? A liberation struggle is not a choir. So yes, I have been saying despots must fall, and I will continue to do so until they do. This struggle is not for me only. This struggle does not belong to me. This struggle belongs to humanity, it belongs to Kenyans. And it doesn't matter if I say despots must fall and I continue to struggle and they do not fall in my lifetime, because I know eventually they will, as long as we continue the struggle. You don't stop agitating for justice because there is so much injustice around you.
Yeah.
If you did that as a principle, as a mode of operation, then nothing will change. For instance, what do you tell the homeless in Kenya? You tell them to give up because there is so much injustice and there is so much homelessness. They should give up. They should no longer struggle to be able to find homes, or they're unemployed. A lot of them have graduated, some of them with distinction from the university, first-class degrees, with very good degrees, really, from electrical engineering, from medicine, from actuarial sciences, to Bachelor of Arts and other things, right?
Right.
They are all unemployed in their millions. Are we going to tell them to give up? No, we can't. We can't tell them to give up. We must tell them to continue fighting because their cause is just. That liberation is a good thing. Equality is a good thing. That transformation of society so that everybody else benefits from the wealth of the country is a good thing. And that the domination of power by a few entitled individuals, the few who have looted everything and continue to do so, is a bad thing that we must end. And in our little way, you may be doing it through tweets, you may be doing it on Facebook, you may be doing it by joining a popular movement, you may be doing it by joining a union, you may be doing it by joining a picket. Whatever you do, if we do it consciously, if we do it together, if we do it in a disciplined way, we will end tyranny and exploitation and inequality sooner than we think.
Right.
That is how apartheid ended in South Africa. That's how all unequal and oppressive systems ended. That's my message.
Right. Dr. We are staring at an election in 2022, and of course, the war on corruption has always been mentioned as something that must be at the top of the agenda. For you, even yourself, you had this at deep in your heart when you wanted to vie for, when you vied actually for the governor position in Nairobi. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta, in mid-January this year, did actually outrightly put out a figure of how much the country is losing through corruption every day. He mentioned 2 billion Kenya shillings. Analysts insist that this number could even be more. As we stare to the election in 2022, are you concerned that the same figures, the same characters could end up still, becoming top leaders in this country that have not been able to fight corruption in the way it should be?
Well, that's a good question. The focus really should not be on the election and should not be on members of parliament or all these other people. These are distractions. The problem is Uhuru Kenyatta. So let's start there. And to tell you the truth, the theft is the lesser evil. The main evil and the main crime Uhuru Kenyatta has committed is to subvert the Constitution of Kenya, including the Bill of Rights. Kenyans are killed every single day by the police extrajudicially, more than in any other African country except in a war zone. So it's almost like Kenyans are in a war zone without war having been declared. And the war is against the ordinary Kenyans. For example, right now, we don't know how many people these people are killing in Laikipia because they don't publish the figures and the media would not do it. In more responsive countries, they would. So that's number one. Uhuru Kenyatta is public enemy number one. Now, when it comes to corruption, he's the culprit number one. Because before we get to his figures, which I agree are deflated, how much did he steal through the SGR? More than 400 billion. None other than Jimmy Wanjigi, who is one of the biggest crooks in Kenya, confessed to that. You understand? 400 billion. Who did he give the contract to? His brother Uhuru Kenyatta. That's the one he gave the SGR contract to. So that's where the money went. How about the COVID billionaires? Who are they? All his relatives, from his sisters to his children to his brother to many of his family members. Has any of them been charged and tried and convicted? No. In fact, his buddy, his drinking and smoking buddy, David Murade, was even summoned to the by the EACC, and I believe was supposed to have been summoned by the DCI. Has he been charged? Uhuru Kenyatta said these people would be charged in 21 days. It's more than a year, and nobody has been charged. And the other day, his cabinet minister, son, was caught at the airport with more than $4 million dollars in cash.
He refuted
Has he been charged?
He refuted
Pardon me? You expect him to confess? Have they ever confessed, any of them? The other day, his former minister of sports, Wario, was convicted. How did he get off? Somebody steals over 20 million Kenya shillings, but gets fined 3.6 million. Forget about the interest, forget about the principal, forget about the fact that this was public funds. He should have gone to jail, right? So what I'm saying, and how about Anne Waiguru? You expected her to confess, yet we know how much was lost in the NYS scandal. How about Ngilu that he fired from the cabinet for theft of public resources? Right now, they are together in the same camp, trying to pretend that they are campaigning for Raila Odinga because they want unity of Kenya. So Ngilu, whom he fired, saying Ngilu was corrupt, is now supposed to be clean, right? And so many others. Do you understand? So the person who is looting public resources And really the person who should be answerable for the theft of public resources, number one, is Uhuru Kenyatta. Number two are all these ministers, including cabinet secretaries, including people like Fred Matiang'i, who are convicted. Justice Odunga, on March 29th, 2018, convicted Matiang'i for contempt of court and fined him 200,000 Kenya shillings. He has not paid the fine and is a convicted criminal, but
Right.
he's still serving in a very powerful position. When you're surrounded by crooks, and these are supposed to be your best friends, you can't claim to be clean.
Right.
Uhuru Kenyatta is not clean. So what are we going to do about it? I start with you. What are you doing about it as a journalist? Because in many countries, it is journalists who bring these people down. So if you're not doing something about it, I turn the question upside down to you. What are you doing about it?
Fair
What you
question.
should be doing about it is exactly what I'm doing. Exposing it, constantly talking about it, mobilizing Kenyans to oppose it, and eventually he will be brought to account like Zuma was.
I want to read your thoughts, Dr. Miguna, on this whole scenario where, there's always been a cry from politicians every time, there is a case against them. And Deputy President William Ruto himself, in fact, has warned. He said that the narrative that the journalists have been creating is that of that he is corrupt, and we are trying to push them, that is the top leadership of the government, to rush into making decisions that when they go to the courts of law, half or most of those who have been judged by the court of public opinion as corrupt do not end up being judged or found guilty by the courts. In fact, the Deputy President says the war on corruption is a war about integrity, and an integrity war that does not have integrity ceases to be an integrity war and actually becomes corruption in itself. When these leaders say these things, do you see any logic, any genuineness? Who's fooling who? Who's the weakest link in this war against corruption?
I think I've been very clear. First of all, if what you are saying is what Ruto said, of course he's wrong. The war of corruption should be a war on all the corrupt, including himself. I mean, everybody knows he's corrupt. So it's inexcusable for anybody to say that the war on corruption is supposed to be any other thing other than the war on the corrupt like himself. Raila Odinga is corrupt, Ruto is corrupt, Mudavadi is corrupt, Kalonzo is corrupt, Wetangula is more than corrupt, Gilu is corrupt. The whole lot of them are corrupt through and through. We all know. And we all have evidence of everything that they have stolen. Okay? This is not something we are just talking about. This is something that we have evidence, credible evidence on. And if we were serious about the war on corruption, the whole lot of them should be in jail for 50 years each, without remission, without parole. You lock them up and you throw away the keys. Okay? That would be justice. It would be summary, it would be swift, and it would be unremitting. That's what I would do. Because the evidence is all over the place. But you can see who was the former director of public prosecutions. Do you remember? Keriako Tobiko.
Yes.
Who appointed Keriako Tobiko minister? Uhuru Kenyatta. So therefore, when he was there, he was working for Uhuru Kenyatta. Who is the biggest land thief in the Republic of Kenya? The Kenyatta family, the biggest land thief, followed by the Moi family, and followed by all the others. So if you have the director of public prosecution being rewarded to be a cabinet minister immediately after his term ends, that is not even ethical, because in many countries that would not be ethical. But you can tell that no wonder most of these crooks were not charged, were not tried, were not convicted and were not sentenced. Where is Kideru? Still enjoying his stolen billions, right? Where is Wainaina that helped him steal? Still enjoying his billions. Where are all those people who worked with Nairobi county government that were caught red-handed stealing? Still enjoying their billions. How about Ajamong? Still enjoying his billions. How about all these governors, including Awiti of Homa Bay, who is so filthy that skunk would smell sweeter? Still enjoying their billions. So the point is, my friend, I blame the media. All right? I do. Seriously. Because that's the media's job. I know a few media personalities have tried, like Ukari and the rest, to do the right thing. But you see, this has to be concerted. This has to be something that is done institutionally. Then I blame the lawyers and the accountants and the architects and the engineers before I blame the ordinary Kenyan. Because really, there should be a difference between people who have gone to school and people with degrees and people with professions and people with comfortable livelihoods vis-a-vis the lumpen proletariat in Kibera who lives from hand to mouth and who does not have any stake in the system and can be killed today without anybody raising a voice. There should be a difference between what you are able to do against what is happening around you and what the person on the street can do. The moment we do it, the other people will have courage, the ones without the stake in this system. And the system will come tumbling down.
Right.
That is why in every society, the so-called middle class is very central. If it is crooked, it is rotten, it takes a while before the system comes crumbling down, because the so-called middle class protect them. Because most of them acquired wealth not through work, not through creativity, not through innovation, not through resourcefulness, their own resourcefulness. They also just skimmed through the system. Through corruption, they got what they have.
Right.
And that is a major problem.
That's a major problem, Dr. Miguna, you say. And so, as you just described everybody else that you just mentioned by name, Dr. Miguna, these are the same people who are running for office come 2022. And today what we are seeing is a lot of what most analysts would say sloganeering. And fighting corruption is not among the key things. We are hearing about the bottom-up economy, we are hearing about the Build Kenya, we are hearing about the 24 economy. Everybody's talking about lowering taxes and all that. What is the missing link here? What would you even say about these models as opposed to the real fight against corruption?
First of all, they are not everybody. I don't know why 15 people or 5 people become everybody. Kenya is a country of 50 million people.
Yes.
So when I talk of 5 people and you call them everybody, do you see the problem? You see, the problem is always in the question. When we reduce ourselves to be nobodies, because when you say those people are everybody and you are somebody, you're actually dehumanizing yourself. They're not everybody. They're such a tiny minority. And as I say, they are very unqualified for whatever. I'll give you an example. Uhuru Kenyatta never worked a day in his life before he became president. Not a day in his life. Never. Before, when Moi picked him up from his drinking dens and made him a nominated member of parliament and appointed him into cabinet, he had never held a job. He had never run a business. He had never qualified from any educational institution of higher learning. He didn't have a diploma and didn't have a degree. But so if you have that, this is now the one to lead you to prosperity. Do you see the problem?
Yeah.
You will never prosper because you're being led by the most unqualified. It's like you have cancer and you're being treated by a plumber. You will never get well. Or you have any kind of condition and you go to a farmer to do surgery on your tummy, you will die. That is where Kenya is. Kenya has chosen the 5 most unqualified charlatans, and they call them the leading lights. A country that praises charlatans cannot develop, my friend, will never transform, and will never be democratic. So Kenyans must stop calling Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta, and this group of failures as leaders. They are not. They never were. They will never be. So, but you see, among the 50 million Kenyans, there are a lot of brilliant Kenyans. There are a lot of Kenyans with integrity. There are a lot of hardworking Kenyans. There are a lot of brilliant Kenyans with ideas who, if you gave them a chance, they will transform Kenya in 2 years. So why isn't the media promoting them? You see, when you invite Miguna to this studio, you start by distracting and asking him very irrelevant things first to destabilize him. But if you call Raila Odinga, you will be so enamored. You will be asking questions that he wants you to ask. Do you understand? That's the difference. Because it's almost like it got into the journalist's blood to praise the most unqualified. And I'm saying the moment we stop that, Kenya will transform. So that's the problem. The problem for me is not these charlatans, because they know they are not qualified, and the only way to continue perpetuating impunity is for them to buy a few people in the media so that they continue praising them. And I'll give you a good example, and then I'll end. In 2017, I ran for office in Nairobi. I hope that you were in Nairobi at that time. I had a manifesto, and I held it and explained what ails Nairobi and how to actually solve the problem. Do you know that on a daily basis, the media were praising Sonko every day? The Standard had a 15-page spread on Sonko, calling him all manner of good names. They were praising Kidero like crazy. When we went for debates, they would not want to give me a chance to deconstruct them. Now, fast forward 3-5 years later, where is Sonko? And yet, now they are claiming it was not them. It was the media that built Sonko, plus Uhuru Kenyatta that imposed him in Jubilee, and William Ruto. These are the people. It was Raila Odinga who imposed Kidero and gave him a direct ticket in Nairobi. Did Raila Odinga not know that Kidero was a thief? He knew. But as long as Kidero was bribing him and giving him money, Kidero was supposed to be a good man. Did they not have candidates, qualified Kenyans, that they could put forward to transform Nairobi? So now they have a military man, another very thoroughly unqualified man, and a man occupying office illegally. And now they put him there because the idea is make Kenyans know that education means nothing. Make Kenyans accept that a transformative idea means nothing. Make Kenyans think that ideas are valueless and that the only things that matter is a gun and a ton of money. That's really what they want to do. The reason why Badi is occupying public office in Nairobi is precisely that. So that Kenyans become so cynical and forget about what their duty is and accept whatever it is that they have been given. And I'm challenging you, and I'm challenging every Kenyan to reject this completely.
Right. Dr. Miguna, I want us to move closer towards the end of the conversation, but I would love to hear your thoughts. Many Kenyans are, in fact, some had even asked me to ask you this. Looking at, of course, you've already mentioned a few of the candidates in terms of how you feel and what you believe they don't bring on the table and how they are not qualified to run for office. But it would be interesting to hear your take as a person who's also been a contender in active elections yourself. These economic models that are being thrown into the throats of Kenyans, what do you make of them? Let's with your permission, let's talk about them. I mean,
that's another good question.
Approach.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
You see, I acknowledge when a question is good, right?
Thank you.
So that one is a good one.
Yeah.
So my answer is this. There is no economic model that has been brought forward by anyone.
Bottom-up approach, 24 hours economy?
None of them is economic. Mm-hmm. None of it is economic. None of them has brought an economic model. You see, the problem with Kenya is that even people who should understand what an economic model is have joined them. People like Ndi and the rest, they do understand. They know all this is abracadabra. You see, they are engaged in make-believe kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You see, and I've heard the media and other people talk about ideology as if ideology is anything that comes through anybody's mouth. Mm-hmm. You know, scientifically, there are very few ideologies in the world, you know. Capitalism is an ideology, okay?
Yes.
Communism is an ideology. Marxism-Leninism is an ideology. Okay? Socialism is an ideology. Liberalism is an ideology. All these others are abracadabra. You see, these people must posit and position themselves on scientific ideologies and then present an economic model that is based on that ideology. An economic model cannot be based on nothing. It has to be based on an ideology. And there is no ideology called bottom-up. There is no ideology that Raila Odinga is talking about, which is abracadabra. There is none. He is not identifying what it is. He says he's a social democrat, which could be a branch of ideology. But then what he presents as an economic model is not a social democratic economic model. Because if you're a social democrat, you should come up with a social democratic, economic, social, cultural, and other programs that cohere with that ideology. If you're a conservative, you're a capitalist like Ruto, and Odinga is also a capitalist, then you should come up with capitalistic ideas and capitalistic economic models. And this thing called bottom-up cannot be found in any book of ideology. Do you understand?
Right.
So as long as Kenyans are talking about rubbish and then propelling rubbish into the position of ideology, you can't debate them if you're a serious man.
But Dr. Miguna,
and I consider myself a serious man.
We've seen how they've pulled rallies. We've seen how they've actually mesmerized people with all these ideologies, which they say, you see, these are our numbers.
No, they are not ideologies. But I have to say, out of all those, the only person who seems to resonate with what the country, or the majority of Kenyans seem to want to hear is Ruto, because he is a marketer. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. He's a marketer. So he's marketing something. He's the only one who has come close to doing something. It's not ideological, but it's some kind of marketing tool that he's using. So it's a nice marketing tool. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. The bottom up. It sounds chic, it sounds fresh, and it tends to resonate with the ones who have given up. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, if he takes power, all right, and I say if, I don't say when, I say if. Mm-hmm. If he takes power, it will be back to nothing. The same with Raila, back to nothing. Just meandering around, making the same mistakes we've seen, and if you ask him, didn't you say this? He will say, I did not say that was an ideology, and he will be right, because it is not an ideology.
Right. So what you're trying to say, or what you're saying, Dr. Miguna, is that all these politicians, what they're doing is just trying to resonate with what the people want to hear, but not basically what is right for the country. Is this what you're trying to say?
I did not say all of them. I mentioned specific ones.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of politicians in Kenya, right? The main ones that the media focuses on are talking complete, patented rubbish.
Reuben
Yeah.
Kigame is not really well articulated so much on the media. We don't hear a lot of people talk about him in the media. So you've said some of them, and those who are not really put a spotlight on are the ones who probably could be able to be speaking what the country really needs. What would you say about him?
So let me tell you, no, I don't want to talk about people I don't know. So I don't know this man, and really it would not be fair for me to talk about him.
Right,
The other
fair
people
enough.
I know.
Fair enough.
The other people I know very well, and I want to talk about. I've not had him either identify what his ideology is, to tell you the truth. But you see, the problem you're falling into is to think that the only people who are doing politics are the ones who are running for elections, or the ones who have declared that they're running for president.
Right.
There are a lot of Kenyans who are very political and are very clear and have very clear ideologies. But they have not necessarily said they are running. Then there are people who the media are not yet recognizing or have not recognized, or those who believe in a revolution, but you dismiss it because you think it is not possible, particularly in Kenya. And you think Kenya is some kind of island, maybe in some outer space, where human beings do not resemble others in Africa. Yet we know that we had a revolution in Sudan just a year ago. And there, it was supposed to be remoter than in Kenya because al-Bashir was stronger than Uhuru as a strong man, and he's a military man, right? And was as brutal, if not more brutal, than Uhuru Kenyatta. So people did not think that a revolution in Sudan was possible, but it did happen. How about Burkina Faso? Compaore had been in power for 30 years. Uhuru has hardly been in power for 10 years. Yet he thinks he's as strong as an oak tree. Yet he is is useless, like foam. The only reason Uhuru is in power is because Miguna is in exile and he's disorganized a few people who are with me together with Raila Odinga. But it is coming. Do you understand? So what I champion for is a revolution, which really is an overhaul of the society, a transformation of the society from the bottom completely. Okay, you uproot the system that you have now, and you create a people-friendly system, a system based on merit. Nobody should be able to earn a living without earning it, unless they're disabled, all right? Unless they're not able to work. A lot of Kenyans with billions steal their billions from the suffering Kenyans.
Right.
Kenya is the only country that I know of where unemployment is so high and nobody's talking about it. Then somebody goes to the UK, then says that he has become some kind of employment relations officer and that he has secured some employment for nurses and he wants a cut. You know the Kenya government is getting a cut from the so-called nurses that are being sent to the UK?
Sure.
It's ridiculous, but nobody's talking about it. How do you export nurses to a developed country when the majority of Kenyans cannot access a hospital, do not have access to medicine? How do you do that? Do you understand? Like Kenyans, what is the ratio between 1,000 Kenyans to a doctor? Is it even 1,000? What is the ratio in Britain? What is the ratio of the British vis-a-vis a nurse? So we need nurses more than Britain does, but we take our nurses to Britain nonetheless. Yet Kenya is more resource rich than the UK.
Yeah, the argument, Miguna,
We
is
squander
we are creating
our resources.
Yes.
My point,
Yeah.
Eugene,
Yeah.
is this.
Yeah.
I want Kenyans to become very angry with the way that the country has been raped for more than 60 years now by 5 families. Do you understand? And they want to choreograph something called an election, which is not going to be an election. And they are telling you openly that they want to rig it, that it will not be free and fair and credible. And they want to impose a senile man called Raila because they know he has become so useless anybody can control him, so that they can perpetuate this inequality and repression forever.
Yeah.
Kenyans must reject that.
Yeah, Dr. Miguna, but the argument with the Raila supporters are feeling that today Raila stands even a higher chance because he is now able to even woo votes in Central where he was not able to even step foot into. I mean, how do you convince a Raila diehard that it can't happen?
I think that person is living in I don't know whether it is hell or it is some kind of dreamland. So let me remind them that in 1963, Jomo Kenyatta could not get even 2,000 votes anywhere in Kenya. And he was just made prime minister by Raila's father and Tom Mboya. All right? Mm-hmm. And Tom Mboya could campaign anywhere in Kenya and had more support than anyone else at that time in terms of, people responding to messages, including Central Province.
Yeah.
Tom Mboya did not become president. He was killed by Jomo Kenyatta instead. In 2002, just fast forward, Raila Odinga was campaigning all over Central Province and was called Jamba. Kibaki was sick in England. When NAC formed the power, where did Raila find himself? On the streets, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Now, so campaigning in Central Province means squat. It means zero, zilch. It is meaningless. And by the way, Kenya is not just Central Province. I want people to understand that Kenya is not just Kikuyus.
Yeah.
Kikuyus are part of Kenya, but Kenya is not Kikuyu. Mm-hmm. Kenya is not Mount Kenya. And this lack of self-esteem that Raila has vis-a-vis the Kikuyu is a very big problem. He's desperate now, saying that he's climbing Mount Kenya with a donkey. I don't know which donkey is it, whether it is Maina Commander or Murathe or Uhuru, whatever donkey it is. It's not going to give him power. Raila thinks that the so-called deep state would give him power. Why didn't the deep state give him power in 2002? Why didn't the deep state give him power in 2013? Because he was prime minister at the time. He shared in the deep state. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. So how do you become president when the IBC is still controlled by the National Security Intelligence Service? How do you become president when the IBC servers are still in France and not open? How do you become president when you don't control the army and you have demobilized your people that organized for you to be sworn in 2018? Do you see the stupidity? Nobody goes to negotiate without an army or without an organized base, without some kind of an ability to effect whatever gains you've made in that negotiation.
Yeah.
What does Raila Odinga have?
So
the Taliban were in the mountains in Afghanistan. That's how they got power.
Yeah.
You understand?
So
and if you look at any other, if you go to Zambia,
yeah.
Let me just give that one example. If you go to Zambia, Hichilema got power because he did not abandon his people. Mm-hmm. You understand? The people recognize him as a legitimate voice of resistance. And the state were constantly harassing and mistreating him as he was campaigning to get power. So the people gave him power. People are the ones who give power, not the deep state. Raila Odinga is in some lumberland, I don't know what it is called. And he will wake up too late to realize that he's in a powder market and somebody else is in State House.
Right, very clear, Dr. Miguna. You said something very important, that Kenya is not Mount Kenya. Kenya is not Central Province. And that brings me to this important question. We have seen people like Moses Kuria, they have come out to demand for positions 40%. They've called them their irreducible minimums. The deputy president position is non-negotiable for any person who's going to run for president. They have said they want 40% of all government appointments. I mean, from where you sit, Dr. Miguna, I mean, how does this make you feel? Does it even make sense to you?
I don't normally respond to people who are meaningless. But to tell you the truth, so why don't they just go for 100%? I mean, why don't they, if they think that they control, if they have the numbers and that their numbers determine who becomes president, then let them just go and get it, right? 100%. Like why 40%? Why do you want somebody else who, let's assume that the elections were free and fair and credible and somebody has actually won the elections? Now you are demanding, you have not contested, and you are coming with some myth that you are 40% of the population, which you are not, and therefore you want 40% of the power. They will not get it. Secondly, who are they negotiating with? Because I've not seen on the other side, who is it that has this power that they want to give them 40%? And they're negotiating on behalf of whom? Because their constituency, if in fact Central Province was supposed to be their constituency, and I don't think it is, but let's assume for the sake of argument that it is. It's all with Ruto right now, really. We have to be honest. It's like 99% of it is with Ruto. So what are you negotiating? You're negotiating on behalf of what? Chicken or cattle in Central Province? These are jokers. And then the last point, who are these? You see, Martha Karua is the most ridiculous authoritarian hypocrite in the Republic of Kenya. She helped Kibaki steal elections in 2007. And she told everybody to go sit on a pen. And now she's pretending to be representing something. She wants to be a governor of Kirinyaga. Let her go and contest in Kirinyaga and leave these other issues. And then Moses Kuria, who the hell is he? He should tell us who killed Musando first before he can even stand to tell us anything else. You know, the less said about others, the better. You know, my friend Kiunjuri should leave these guys alone. He's not committed the crimes these people have committed.
Right. So, Dr. Miguna, I would like to read some questions, some comments that have also come through before we wrap up this conversation. On Facebook, I have Habari Njema, that's what he calls himself. He says, Dr. MM, 1. What happens when court rulings or directives are ignored or disobeyed by the persons in office? A case example, your case. Question 2, when you presented your documents before IEBC and other agencies for clearance as a candidate in Nairobi gubernatorial election, did anyone complain of you being a Canadian? And then thirdly, any legal chances of coming back to Nyando?
Well, so let's take the first one first. What happens when people disobey court orders? Number one, you go to court and you ask that they be found in contempt, which I did, and they were found in contempt. Unfortunately, my lawyers did not go for the enforcement of the orders. So my lawyers have failed me because they are too scared, I think. And so they have not enforced those orders. You can enforce those orders. And the judiciary, the way it is, will give you the enforcement instruments.
Yeah.
And then the chips will fall where they may. You will use those instruments politically to agitate or whatever, because ultimately they will not put each other in jail, but you have the orders. You can auction these people, for example. because Justice Mwita did a beautiful job. The orders were given against Matiang'i and his group personally. So these persons have properties in Kenya. We can auction their properties and get the monies that were awarded, which they have not paid a dime. So 7,270,000 was given because of the destruction and the infringement of my rights. Then 200,000 was again awarded against them when they were convicted for contempt, none of which have been collected. All the costs of all the proceedings have not been collected. Those need to be collected. But somebody needs to go to court in Kenya physically to do so. Number two, the question is, did anybody ask me about? No, nobody did. I was cleared as a Kenyan, as it should have happened, and was allowed to run. That was not the first time. I mean, as you said, I tried to vie in 2007. There was no issue. I was the senior most advisor to the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya, which was a public office. I got paid by taxpayers' money. I traveled on delegations to New York, to all over the world, and nobody stopped me and nobody said anything. And I represented ODM during the constitutional review process. Nobody said anything. So this thing they came up with is ridiculous. All right?
Right.
And as to when they will see me in Nyanda, I think I answered that question when we began.
Right.
So I'm not going to repeat a question I've answered.
Right. Oriop Simate says, Mr. Miguna Miguna, between Raila and Ruto, who do Kenyans deserve as president between the two, owing to the fact that they are both the front runners? This is not my question, Dr. Miguna, so it's not me.
No, I know it is not your question, and that is a question I've also answered.
Right. Right. Another question here is, according to his stand of revolution, ask him to clarify it, and as we are heading to 2022, whom did he support? I think he's trying to find out who you support for 2022 currently.
I support the people of Kenya. And I support the people of Kenya to rise up, take matters in their own hands, take the country back from the oligarchs and transform it. That's what has to happen before Kenyans will enjoy the fruits of the resources that belong to them in the country. Kenya has oil, Kenya has precious metals, Kenya has good land. Kenya is a beautiful country, but it's all been turned into a slave plantation by 5 families. We must get it back.
Right. Patrick Joe says this guy Miguna is breathing fire, and comes back to ask, the Kenyan law is clear on regaining Kenyan citizenship. Let Miguna follow the law and spare us the drama. Section 10(1) of the Kenyan Citizenship and Immigration Act 2011 provides, a person who was a citizen of Kenya by birth and who ceased to be a citizen of Kenya because he or she acquired the citizenship of another country may apply in the prescribed manner to the Cabinet Secretary to regain Kenyan citizenship. What would you be telling this person?
You see, there's nothing to tell him, because those arguments were made in court and they were discredited by the judges. You see, the unfortunate thing with these people is that they don't understand how law works. When you have a case, you present it in court, and you either win or lose.
Yeah.
So they have lost more than 30 times against me, all right? And I don't hold any public office. They have lost more than 30 times. They have made that argument more than 30 times in court, including at the Court of Appeal, and they have lost. So the judgment of Justice Mwita, Chacha Mwita, of December 14th, 2018 stands. It's not been overturned. And it said, Miguna is a Kenyan citizen by birth. He never lost his citizenship. Period. Do you understand?
Yeah.
The passport was taken to him illegally and should be returned unconditionally. Miguna must be allowed to come to Kenya unconditionally. Justice Korir on the 6th of January 2020 said, Miguna is allowed to come to Kenya with his national ID card or the passport Matiang'i and his group destroyed in his destroyed state. So I'm not going to argue These people had the opportunity to argue in court, and they had a lot of lawyers, and they had the state on their side, and they have lost repeatedly. I'm very happy that I've won every time. And really, anybody who imagines that I can lose citizenship by doing nothing, you understand?
Yeah.
Is dreaming. And let me educate the country, because I think a lot of people are not also educated. When you flee out of your country because of genuine fear of persecution, or you are physically thrown out of your country, by law, you have not left because you did not leave voluntarily, by law. So your absence is absence in the terms of your physical absence, but it does not change your legal status in Kenya. Mm-hmm. So when you go back, it is like the clock is rewound back to the beginning, and it is like you never left. Okay?
Yeah.
Unless you do this, unless you renounce your citizenship. And remember, these people also are aware that I did not renounce Kenyan citizenship. And that if they say I did, let them prove that I did, and they have no proof. Remember the case of Mwende. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Mwende, that Uhuru appointed ambassador, even though parliament said she should not. Mwende was not born in Kenya. She was born in the United States. She is a US-born citizen. Parliament told her to renounce her citizenship, and she refused. Uhuru still appointed her, isn't it?
Yeah.
To a job that the law says only a citizen should have. But Mwende was right that you can't force her to renounce her citizenship, which is US. On the other side, they are now claiming they renounced my citizenship for me. Mwende could not do it, but Miguna somehow did it through them. They renounced my own citizenship. And I say that kind of stupidity has no entertainment in my circles.
Yeah. Finally, Dr. Miguna, the judiciary, while you are away, we got a female Chief Justice, and there's been a lot of push and pull between the executive and the judiciary. Do you feel confident that probably the current constitution of the judiciary would be able to fight this war in terms of ensuring that the country is on the right track as far as court orders are concerned, even with your own case? What would you be saying about the current state of the judiciary in Kenya? From
I don't understand your question. You said the current constitution of the judiciary. What do you mean?
I'm saying while you are away, the country did get a female.
Not while I'm away. I think that you are now spoiling it.
Okay, let me not spoil it. Let me not spoil it.
Was forced into exile.
Yes, let me say it. While you were forced into exile. Right, so while you were forced into exile, the judiciary got a female Chief Justice. I want, regardless of the gender of the Chief Justice or whatever it is, I want to read your thoughts. There's been a lot of supremacy battles, some people have called it that, between the executive and the judiciary. Where do you see this, for the sake of Kenyans who require someone to stand in the gap? Where do you see this going or taking us?
I think the question is a bit muddy, but I'll try to answer it the best way I can. Number one, there has not been any supremacy battle between the judiciary and the executive. The executive has disobeyed the constitution and has tried to illegally control the judiciary.
Yeah.
The problem has not been visited on the judiciary by the judiciary. The judiciary has not done anything. I think people are referring to Maraga. Maraga simply exercised his constitutional powers and authority and did not attempt to exercise powers that the Constitution vests in the executive.
Yeah.
For example, Maraga did not purport to appoint civil servants. Maraga did not purport to sign executive orders. Maraga did not do anything other than what the Constitution allowed him to do. But Uhuru, on the other hand, has tried more than 100 times to control the judiciary. He refused to appoint judges, even though that the Constitution does not give him power to decide who will be appointed a judge, when and how. Uhuru has refused to obey numerous court orders. Uhuru refused to accede to the advisory that Maraga gave him with respect to the third gender rule. Uhuru has disobeyed multiple court orders, not just on me, on so many other, people, Kenyans, and institutions. Mm-hmm. So there is no war, as it were, between the judiciary and the executive.
Right.
Uhuru's presidency declared war on the judiciary once the Supreme Court nullified his electoral theft. He said he would revisit, and that's what he's been doing. So, for example, the BBI. Remember that on the 9th of March, 2018, I said the BBI was illegal from the beginning. Mm-hmm. A lot of these people now running around, and some of them even went to court, supported the BBI, including David D. And I told them at that time, this thing is illegal. They condemned me all round. Yeah. They came around to my side, and I appreciate that. But this thing was illegal from day one. Uhuru tried to force it on Kenyans with Raila Odinga. This is a crime for which they have to pay. But the judiciary did well by declaring it null and void throughout. Mm-hmm. And I am 100% confident that if the Supreme Court conducts itself as a court, mm-hmm. this thing has no way of regaining life after its death. So I have to say, the only institution in Kenya that has tried to act in accordance with the Constitution and to protect public interest in Kenya is the Kenyan judiciary.
Right.
So that's the only institution that has tried. So for someone to come and say that there is something wrong the judiciary is doing is ridiculous. These are people who want lawlessness. The judiciary has acted diligently, conscientiously, and very ethically in drawing the boundary between institutions. You see, Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta have refused to accept that the constitution Kenyans gave themselves is a presidential system. Mm-hmm. It's a pure presidential system. You can't make it hybrid. You can't bring elements of parliamentary in it and purport to call it parliamentary when it is not.
Right.
Because then you're creating a mongrel. I wanted a parliamentary system, if Kenyans remember this. I championed for it. That's part of the reason why Raila suspended me in 2011, because I disagreed with him. He betrayed Kenyans in 2011, the same way he's betraying Kenyans now. This man does not have a stand, because in 2011, 2010, when we got the constitution, he wanted a presidential system. The constitution was not messed up in Naivasha. Right. It's a big lie. The constitution was messed up at Harambee House, and I was at that meeting, and Raila is the one who proposed that amendment to the draft that came from the committee of experts, which was a hybrid. Mm-hmm. And Raila said he wanted raw power so that he could bring equity to the country. That was his proposal. So now he says he wanted something else, that no, the people that went to Naivasha got instructions from their principals. Kibaki instructed his team PNU, Raila instructed his team ODM, they went to Naivasha and they got what the two principals told them to get. Mm-hmm. So it is a lie that Raila wanted a parliamentary system. Raila wanted a pure presidential system. That's what Kenyans voted for. He cannot run away from it. And he is not going to be able to create a mongrel so as to create an imperial presidency because of a promise from the deep state that they will steal elections for him. Kenyans must rise against this kind of despondency.
Right. So what you're saying is this whole BBI thing is dead and buried. The Supreme Court appeal, I don't know, going through Parliament, this is
It's
just
a waste of time. It's a waste of time, dead and buried. And in any case, you can't change the constitution less than a year before elections.
Yeah.
So all this, in fact, these people are committing so many crimes, I don't know how long we will have to sentence them to jail. Because the amount of money they have wasted through lawyers, that they are paying amounts that are unconscionable. You know, some of these people earn more than 5 million a day. You know, people like Githu Muigai, it's theft at a scale that has never been known. They have been earning insane figures, all right? Mm-hmm. And yet you have state law office, you have the Attorney General. These people are paid not to go to court. And then they are paid to lose cases. Then they appeal frivolously to lose more because that is the only way they can steal. Mm-hmm. The whole system is rotten through and through.
Right. Dr. Miguna, to end it at this particular point, I must accept there's some comments here. The man with the same name twice has done it again. Miguna Miguna, the man of the era. And there's Davis Atundo says, Eti Anangwe ameona moto. Dr. I came prepared, but if we are to count the scores, what would you be able to give?
It's done in good faith. I don't give scores. Yeah. It's a good interview, and let the chips fall where they may. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dr. I hope we'll do this again next time.
Yes, you gave me a platform, so I have to appreciate that, the fact that you did.
Yeah.
But as they say, it comes with the territory.
Right. Asante. What I'm going to do after this, I'll definitely grab copies of the books and I will read them, and then we'll have another conversation.
Please do. And if you want to discuss them from a point of knowledge.
Asante sana, Daktari. Thank you for your time. Thank you very much. Stay safe. All right, thank you very much. There you have it. Of course, Dr. Miguna Miguna joining us live all the way in Canada. As we promised, we would be able to have that conversation. Thank you so much to the many of you who've been tweeting. Some of you have been able to send us your comments through our online platforms. Alan Omondi, you said that this is a question to Miguna. If you were a presidential aspirant, which ideology could you bring with you? Definitely the general has gone. You've also said Raila disagreed with me because I wanted parliamentary system. These are some of the feedback or some of the comments that are coming through our social media platforms. Remember, the conversation ends here on these four walls, but continues across our digital platforms. The hashtag, as always, is the bottom line KE. We are here every Monday from 9 p.m. to just try to make sense of the various political events in this beautiful country of ours. My name, as always, is Eugene Anangwe. Goodbye for now.
We value your feedback and welcome your complaints about our programming and operations. Feel free to get in touch with us through 0700 893 542 or send us an email to views@look-up.tv. We can't wait to hear from you. business? Broadcast your sermon, share birthday wishes, make funeral announcements, produce adverts and documentaries? Then book and advertise with us today by calling us on +254 700 893 542
700-893-542
or email us on sales@look-up.tv.
The future of money is simple, like unlocking possibilities with a smile. And having the world in the palm of your hand. It's the ability to touch many lives at the same time and turn your dreams into reality. It's forgetting and still remembering. Simple is having everything that you love in one place. From the ticket to your next meal, to your ticket to the next holiday. It's an easy way to ask for a boost when you're low. And keeping track of everything on the go. The future of money is simple, and it's here. Download the new M-Pesa app today.
Please make those payments and take dinner out the freezer. Enjoy your day off.
Hey.
How was your day?
Great.
Did you pay the bills?
Abby did it.
And the plumber?
Abby did it.
Send money to your mom?
Abby did it.
Who's Abby?
Bank on WhatsApp with Abby, your 24/7 digital personal banker. Another digital innovation that gets things done. That's Africanacity. That's ABSA.
Did you take dinner out the freezer?
Did you know the world's top icons and legends who have made history are dyslexic? Dyslexia is a learning disorder that is characterized by difficulty in reading due to problems with identifying speech sounds and learning how they relate to letters and words. Dyslexia affects areas of the brain that process language. Symptoms include delayed speech, learning new words slowly, and a delay in reading. These legends made it, and so can your child.
Like, follow, subscribe, click the notification button. Join the Look Up TV movement now.